And we are live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Holy Crap, the Vlogcast. Vlogcast that comes from a skeptical point of view to answer some of the questions of why. This Vlogcast started as a combination of spite and the Streisand effect because people on Facebook don't like to be told, you don't know what facts mean, do you?
Did I just lose video?
I hope not, because we're rolling. Part of this is also to follow through with the old adage that sometimes the journey is more important than the destination. I am your main host. I am Shujin Tribble. You can find me pretty much everywhere under that name. Let me introduce you to everybody that's here, at least at this point. Starting over in the left coast, up there in Calgary. Good evening, Dalan.
Good evening.
North of me over into Ontario, Canada. Good morning, Heretic Woman.
Good morning.
From the Midwest of the U.S., good evening, Brigid.
Good evening.
From south of me over into Pittsburgh, good morning, Joseph. Well, Joey.
Howdy, everybody.
Oh, that was nicer for a change. Just to the right on your bingo card in the armpit of the great, wonderful, I don't even know what words I can use for it anymore. Good morning, Unrenowned Tech.
Well, if the crows are any indication, the career buzzards might not, or career vultures might not be that far behind.
Close enough. And over the pond right now, over into Paris. Good morning, Joseph.
Good morning.
For those of you that
He's
are...
the source of the noise.
That's fine. It's
Yeah, I'll turn my sound off until
Until the diatribe's over.
I kind of like the crows now. I don't know. I'm getting used to them.
God.
Kind of becoming...
Well, they stop around
mascots.
in about 15 minutes. They stop when the sun comes up. Yeah. It's their morning serenade.
We'll see how this plays out. At the moment, don't know where Chris is. His invite was sent off. It's possible he's sleeping, which can't say to blame him. And we don't know where our guest is at the moment. We are scheduled to have Ishmael Brown on with us from Angry Black Rant. Really hoping that he shows. But we will work on the assumption that he's just behind schedule and he'll join us as soon as he can. Meanwhile, let me at least get us started over here for the show. And like I said, I've got my new timer and everything up on the screen for myself. So, with apologies to Noah, Heath, Lucinda, and Eli, who had their first live recording of God-Awful Movies, which apparently Noah did not break a rib on this time. Shame on you. Your 5-minute freestyle starts right now. I titled this one, I miswrote it at first. I put breath instead of breathe. You know, it's... Here, I've got a couple of accounts for a whole bunch of different things, including Twitter, and I'm not going to get into which one in particular that I got involved with this with, but I had to deal with, just this past week, a Twitter, I guess you could call it a collection, a group, where it's basically for coordination for other stuff that happens on regular Twitter timeline. Okay, take it for whatever it is. And we didn't know it at the time, but apparently somebody had enjoyed alcohol a little bit too much because of their birthday. And they were obnoxious. Just go with that. And this was a group that's, normally speaking, supposed to be kind of, you know, not obnoxious. You know, everybody works together and... Okay. My thing was, I don't like for there to be strife, drama, call it whatever you will. And person got upset because there had been a lot more activity on that group than normal. And they complained because they were like, you know, I can't turn off notifications on this, so, you know, like y'all just shut up if you don't mind. You know what? Here, I'll make it easier. I'll start a new channel on Discord. For those of you that don't know about Discord, it's not the My Little Pony reference. Leave it alone. And me, I'm thinking to myself, you got yourself involved with a group on Twitter that's supposed to be chatting back and forth to each other to coordinate stuff, and you're complaining because you got a whole bunch of chat notifications. Okay. I chimed in and let him know I don't have Discord. I don't plan on it. I don't intend on it. And on top of all that, shouldn't the person that's presumably the head of the group kind of be the one to make that determination? Now, I know I'm leaving a lot of stuff out of the equation, but that's what it came down to. How much does it suck when you're the voice of rationality, of trying to remain calm, and people jump down your throat for it? I mean, it was a simple matter of I was just trying to explain to him, look, I'm not trying to set anybody against each other, and I'm definitely not trying to set any kind of policy for us. More importantly, I'm trying to say, look, you setting policy when there's somebody else that's presumably the head of the group, should really bring your concerns to the head of the group and let them make their determination. Gather information, find out what everybody has to say about it, and then determine which way to go forward. Because if you try to set policy, if you try to say, let's do this, oh, and by the way, if the head of the group says that we shouldn't do it that way, oh, my bad, and we'll just change it back. Well, that's kind of a dick move. And I can say that without feeling bad about it. I mean, if you go ahead and you set policy on something, and it's not your place, not your position to do it, if you go ahead and say, if the head of the group doesn't want us to do it that way, we'll just change it back. Well, you've now just put the head of the group in an uncomfortable position where they have to go ahead and say, I want to change it back now because you goofed up and you made a mistake. They have to say, I don't want it that way. They have to tell everybody else, I don't want it that way. Everybody else has got to change how they're doing it because they don't want it that way. And on top of it all, they have to say, whoever it was that tried to set this into place, they did wrong, and they shouldn't have done that. Like I said, it's kind of a dick move. If there's something that's going wrong in a situation like that, if you're in a Facebook group, or if you're in a Twitter group, or if you're in a G+, G+ group, whatever. If somebody is going ahead and saying, I would like to do this, and they're not the one that's really in charge, take a breath, man. Just sit back, breathe, relax. Let whatever it is flow through you, and just relax. And then go ahead and tell whoever it is, look, I want to do it this way because I think this is why. And then see what happens. You know the old vinegar and honey thing? Don't do that. Don't even bother with that. Just go ahead and tell whoever it is, I'd like to change it, and here's why. Put it in their hands. This is episode 126 on the docket, Your Honor. This is a Funhouse mirror, and oh boy, if we get Ishmael back, this is going to prove to be an interesting piece, and I'll explain what brought this all together, and like I said, hopefully we'll get him. Meantime, as always, we check in. Heretic Woman at this point, there's no news for me, and I've been looking.
Yeah, there's no news about Rafe specifically, but NSOF did announce that there is a biography movie in the works.
That's
so that, yes. So I mean, hopefully it won't be necessary to help get him out, but can't hurt.
So as of the recording of this show, it is now 4 years, 1 month, 21 days since Rafe Badawi was unjustly incarcerated for thought crime. Our hearts and our hopes are still with you and your family. Let's hope. So let me give you guys a little bit of background on how this episode came to be. And again, as soon as Ishmael comes in, I hope we'll pull him in and explain a good portion of all this. A couple of weeks ago, and I'm probably going to I may get some announcement about this back, which would be nice. So again, if you get a little upset with this one, I'm sorry. I need to say it because forgive me, the color on this situation needs to come forward. A couple of weeks ago, I spoke with Ishmael directly because I wanted to find out from him, is it appropriate to, in context, use the term nigger? I've had to use it on several occasions when I've done my flashback newscast way back when I ended up talking about, oh God, who, in the heat of the night, God, what the hell was his name?
Tibbs.
Sidney Poitier, yeah.
Sidney Poitier, yeah.
That's what I was trying to think of.
Mr. Tibbs? Yeah.
Yes. If you have never seen this movie, by the way, if you want to see how bad race relations can be, that's the movie.
And violence in the home.
I am unfamiliar with that one, so I will just
He
take
ended
your word
up
on it.
whacking his son across the head.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, because of the way that some pieces had been playing out recently in the news, very recently in the news, unfortunately, I was concerned, shouldn't I use the term? And I wanted to find out from him, as someone who would have a better cultural understanding than I, a different perspective, probably a much better perspective. Is it something that we should use? Is it something that I specifically should use in the context of trying to get across the situation? He basically said, look, in context, absolutely, you should use it. You absolutely should, because skirting around it by saying the N-word just bypasses the reality of the situation, and it's just dumbing stuff down, and you shouldn't do that. As a matter of fact, his opinion at the time was basically, you skirt the real issue. It's just pissing people off because you're intentionally trying to sidestep it all. So I took that under advisement, and I thought about it, and I still thought I should still go ahead and use the term properly and make sure that it's in context to get the point across correctly. I feel like, even though we are a talk show, we are still, in our own way, documenting current history and how we feel about it and how we see it. So to that end, that's why this came out. Now, the reason why I wanted to have Ishmael on, and I'm still going to say it, I'm really hoping, he has an incredibly different perspective on the police than I do, than most of us do. He grew up in a different situation, in a different environment, in a different physical location, and his dealings with the police are, dare I say it, completely alien to me. I grew up with a cop. All the cops that, I knew growing up, I knew from growing up, and were friends with my dad, my family. So the crap that we've seen over the last couple of months that's just exploding on the scene is completely foreign to me, and I don't understand why it is. I understand why it's coming forward now a hell of a lot more, and I'm going to hit that too. But I want to try to talk through, why do we see things the way that we have? Or more appropriately, why haven't we seen the pieces that others do? And without Ishmael, it's going to be a little bit, it's going to be very one-sided, unfortunately. But, we play with what we've got. So we'll see how this plays out. I don't know where to start off on this one.
Can I make a suggestion?
By all means.
All right, I want to make a comparison about using words in context. Okay, I know that the word nigger, N-I-G-G-E-R, not to be confused with the one where they replace the E-R with the A-H. Okay, which I actually had a bunch of guys sit me down from a rap group after they called me the one that ended in A-H, because we were hanging out, we were talking, I don't know, they liked me. they explained the differences. It took about 45 minutes to get it through my head what the differences were. But anyway, I called a lady ignorant on Facebook, and I used it in context, the proper definition of the word. We were talking about evolution, and I said that her statement that she had made was made in ignorance, not because that she was dumb, but because she obviously did not either retain the information that she was educated with, or she never received it in the first place. And everybody suddenly came to her defense, saying that I was attacking her. Basically, they assumed I was attacking her personality, her being. And I explained to them, I said, no, ignorant means lack of knowledge. It doesn't mean that she's dumb. It doesn't mean that she's a bad person. And it didn't matter how much I defended myself. I was always on the defense. And to everybody else, I was always wrong. And that is because society changed the context regardless of the dictionary definition.
Well,
So ignorant is now a negative connotation. It is a derogatory, declarative statement of somebody, not of just a lack of knowledge, but of who they are, what they are, their personality, and everything else, even though that's not in the dictionary.
Keep in mind that the religious context of ignorance, from a believer point of view, not knowing something is a sign of weakness. Like religion pretends to have all the answers, so if you don't have the answers, it means something more to them than it does to us.
so
Yes.
a connotative declaration of someone's ignorance in that respect would be basically calling them weak. And that, of course, hits your vanity, and the knee-jerk reaction follows.
Okay,
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
I didn't consider that point, but when we talk about, I hate saying it just because I grew up in a half-Jewish household, and there was enough negative sentiment towards my half of the family that I swore I would never say these things, but I understand that we're talking about them in discussion. The word nigger, its original roots are uneducated laborer, basically somebody who has no knowledge and they work out in a field. Plow a field, reap a harvest. It didn't necessarily mean black person. It evolved over time, and then
The direct root is from Negro.
huh?
It's
Yeah, you
I thought
directly
the
from
original
black.
I thought the original slang was from. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look this up.
Well, the slang term, yes, it did evolve into that, but it does start from negro, which is the Romance language word for the term black, as in the color. If I remember correctly, that's what it was in Spanish.
It's Latin. Niger.
Okay,
Yeah,
and the Latin translation means
black.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but like you said, the slang did evolve to become a. What's the right word? That a pejorative. That's the word I'm looking for.
In the 1800s.
Chris Rock did a great sketch on
Yes.
that, the difference between black and nigger.
Yeah. But what he highlighted with that was the stereotype that the word has taken on.
Mm-mm-mm-mm.
And I think that's part of the problem that we've run into. The stereotypes end up becoming much more the expectation instead of being understood to be. It's a general. It's a caricature, I guess is probably the best way of putting it.
Well,
That it isn't always, and it's not to be taken quite so seriously.
I think, though, look at the culture we live in nowadays of sensationalism.
That's
Now,
true.
Where I'm going with this is, okay, back when the term marital bliss could be associated with my name, a very tiptoey way of saying, when I was married, my wife and I used to watch a lot of, well, let's face it, you flip on the TV at night, pick your crime drama. It's all out there. Like, any kind of Law and Order, CSI, NCIS, the other acronyms for whatever crime drama there is, and look at how they would take a headline or something so innocuous and they would blow it out of proportion. Shujin, you and I have actually had a couple of experiences on this. One, the CSI furry thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean that one there was probably one of the most one of the worst shows based in ignorance I'd ever seen, and I'm using ignorance in the correct context. They didn't know anything.
Notorious, I think, is a good term for it.
Yeah,
also.
There was another one, CSI New York, where they did one on Second Life. You know, they were tracking a serial killer through Second Life.
I remember that.
And they blew all that out of proportion. There was an episode on this whole, it was a derivation of Gamergate and whatever her name was, not Sarkeesian, but the other one that was claiming to be stalked by all these people.
Yeah, I know the one you mean.
Yeah, you know what? The thing is, they proliferate, is that maybe the word I'm thinking of? Wow, my vocabulary is getting used here. Basically, they breed this continual sense, like this sensationalism, where you're saying that the stereotype becomes the expectation. It's because it's plastered all over the TV and the media, so that when you see that person, you know, depending on the color of their skin, the way they speak. I mean, somebody comes up to you with a Middle Eastern styled accent. Doesn't necessarily have to be East Indian, but like anything that sounds remotely Iranian, Pakistani, Iraqi, immediately you think, you go to the stereotype because you've basically been conditioned by the media and all the crap you've taken in to think, okay, I have to get my guard up because this guy could be a terrorist. This guy could come and mug me. And I think that's where a lot of it is coming from. And the reason they're, you know, one of the things we're changing definitions for is I think is because, I don't know, we're trying to cope with this. I don't know. Just trying to.
If it really was a terrorist, I don't think you'd see it until it was too late.
Well, yeah.
And there's no rational reason. Well, anyways, yeah, there's a lot to unpackage there.
I know. All I'm saying is that I've seen a lot of innocuous things get blown out of proportion on TV, and I've talked with people who have basically gone to those shows as examples of why they act the way they do. It's like, well, you know, the TV says all furries are gay. Well, that's not entirely true.
No, it's
How does it matter? Anyways.
Well, but the thing is, though, Joseph, to some people it does matter because, well, that opens up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah.
The religious can of worms. You get all the Leviticans in on that, and yeah.
Because racism is, you know, maybe like 200,000 years ago, it was a survival tool. But in today's world, there's no rational reason for it. It's an emotional reaction. It's pure emotion. It's not rational.
Well, we are emotional creatures. That's the thing. We can't just turn it off.
Yes, we can actually.
Well, hold on. Wait a minute.
Before we start becoming Vulcans.
I was going to say, where's the nearest Kolinar school? I want to sign up.
And I would like to self-correct. I had said that its original definition was lazy day laborer. Well, no, you guys were right. You corrected me. Nigger is from black. However, there was a variation of the word that was used to define somebody who was not black, but acting in a lazy and irresponsible manner. That was basically a one-letter variation of the word.
From that root, it evolved.
From that root, exactly. So that's where the other guy who was telling me about lazy day laborers, where he got it from. So now I'm corrected. I won't make that mistake again. Sorry, people.
So as far as to the we can't turn it off, we can turn it off. The we are afraid of those that are not like us.
We turn it off. It's called shock.
Well,
just stop and think for a second. Like, I'd be honest. I didn't know I was racist until it's not long after I came here to Paris. I was in the metro, and I saw a couple Pakistani-looking men, and I was expecting them to speak in like some sort of, accent and like that, and they start talking to each other like perfect American accent, and I was just appalled at my own reaction, and that gave me pause and to think about what racism was really all about. And
So,
It doesn't even have to be racist. It can be just perceptions, your basic perceptions. We had a guy who walked into Best Buy when I used to work there, who looked like a drunk. He smelled like a drunk. The guy walked out having paid for a plasma television with surround sound, full installation package, full service plans, and everything else. Because from me, nobody else, because nobody else would go near the guy or even talk to him. I was the first one who ever said hi to him in over a year since he had been coming in. He just liked to drink, and he was rich.
But why would you think it's necessarily racist to expect that somebody who normally wouldn't be from that country might have an accent?
isn't that what racism is? It's an expectation.
Well, there was nothing
and
derogatory about that.
It's an assumption.
To me, racism is a negative entity, but just kind of thinking that somebody might have an accent, I don't think is a necessarily negative.
Do you see where
I see it
it's about the reaction?
I see it more as a stereotype.
But, like, I wouldn't have I might think it, but I wouldn't have any noticeable reaction.
see, the thing of it is, and I'm going to ballpark the term racist for a couple of seconds, because I think there's a hell of a lot more nuance in here than what we can really give it credit for. And by the way, Trippin, do see you over there. Hey, it's not so much that racist means that you're going to be bad to someone, but the racist internally, as was said, the emotional part of it, to me, it has been a matter of you look different than me and my group, I will have a distrust for you. Now, can we switch that off? No. But we can ignore it. I think that's where the big difference is. Let me give you a reason. I don't trust you because you're not part of my group. What I expect to see around me is something that is inherent to us. It is something that was, as was said, a survival piece. If you are not part of my tribe, I don't necessarily have to trust you, and probably shouldn't. Same thing with, the hearing the rustling in the grass. You want to flee from that first because safety. But we can put that in the shelf. We can ignore it. We can just say, okay, that's a reaction inside of me. I don't have to do anything with it. These are just humans. Okay, now you can still feel that, but what you do with it, I think, really determines whether it's a good feeling or a bad feeling.
The id is your instinctual part of it. The ego is what you choose to do with it, and the superego says what society thinks you should do with it.
That's a few layers there.
Well,
like a reaction, any reaction we have, okay, it's an emotion, because emotion is our value judgment system. It's how we determine the difference between, I don't know, if we didn't have emotion, a rock and a mouse would be the same thing for us. So,
it's
like any emotion can be trained, and making that first step, just assuming or understanding your own reaction, is the first step to training it, and it can be trained. I mean, humans, like by default, I'm sorry to say, we're violent, rapey creatures if we didn't have the rest of society to hold us in check.
Wait. Did you say rapey?
Yeah. But how
No.
does that make sense if...
There's nothing rapey about this guy on this end of the camera.
But wait a minute.
Exactly,
Wait a minute.
because you have trained your emotions.
But wait a minute. That doesn't make sense. If collectively we're violent, rapey people, then why would society even bother holding us back?
No, but that's the thing. Now, I'm not saying collectively we're like that. I'm saying as individual humans.
But then still, why would society even bother if we're all like that?
Because rationally, it's not good for survival. Our survival conditions have changed from a former hunter-gatherer clan.
But if that's the case, then the individual would probably give that up before even the main society, wouldn't they?
As soon as they observe other people not behaving that way.
Right. I'm not going to give you a pass on that one.
No.
There are plenty of times where individuals will do what is arguably better societally, but people will collectively, because they are not yet, will not necessarily fall into step as soon as they see it. I mean, case in point, let's look at Galileo. I mean, he saw how things were.
Whoa! We're going way from instinct here.
No. I'm going down a road with something. Galileo showed, with his own evidence, this is how the world actually is. But, or actually, I should say, how the solar system is. But he had to go butt heads against the society that he was around. And it took basically 400 years later before the Roman Catholic Church finally said, yeah, maybe we were wrong, and fully accepted they were.
So in other words, the instinct, the individual looking at the society saying, this is better for me if I fall in line, Galileo didn't follow that.
No.
Yeah, because he was presenting a rational idea that challenged. Because religion at the time had a monopoly. They had emotional. It was a dictate, basically. They had human instinct and all that, how people are supposed to behave. They had that totally under their own control. And Galileo, his rational presentation challenged their dictate, and that's it. And this is a society, because there's two ways of living. You can live rationally. You can do something because it makes sense, after you think about it, or you can live by imitation, which is, I would argue that most humans live by that today. It means it's best for survival to imitate other humans. So that also explains the fear of different. That religion actually teaches.
Until, of course, it's wrong, and somebody has to stand up and say, no, this is wrong, and that's kind of the point I was trying to get to. And
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, we try.
Yeah.
We try. That's the thing. We're not trying to dictate to anybody. We're just trying to talk through and try and figure it out, which is admittedly way off from where we were starting. But hey, welcome to the show.
I think we're still on topic, but anyways.
Well, I'm not going to agree with you on the rapey part at all, just because I agree that we're social creatures, and I agree we can be promiscuous, but rapey, no, that's something that
I think.
No.
Why do some religions make their women dress up?
That is a different story. You're talking about indoctrination. I'm talking about instinct. That's two different things.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Hang on. Because the making women dress up is not what they claim it is. It has,
no, but that doesn't matter. But that's why they're doing it.
Because if you're trying to say that we're a quote rapey people, but we're not, they're using that as an excuse. But it's something that they've created. It's not a real thing, right? the idea that if a woman isn't dressed in a potato sack, she's going to get assaulted is bullshit. That's not true.
By any male who's not emotionally trained, who has no self-control.
No, I've heard that crap
but they're not
come out
like
of
that. That's not the way it is, though. Like
because look at the
men...
religion. In order to impose its own rule, it has to remove all individual thought from its followers.
Well, yeah, but that has nothing to do with the...
And they want their followers to rely on the religion for their quote-unquote emotional dictate.
But what does that have to do with the rapey part?
Yeah, that's like saying because of religion, humans are naturally inclined to take machine guns.
No, I never said
and go around shooting people. Now, it takes religion to validate that. Instinct, you might kill or beat up one person who comes after you. But to go after a whole group of people, that does take religion.
Like, the whole
concept of
I think you didn't get my point.
After somebody for instinct.
But the whole idea of making women dress up is it's a boogeyman that they've created in order to control the sexuality of women. That there is no.
So why does the sexuality of women? Why is it even an issue?
Because that's how you control your people. Because women are the key gatekeepers of reproduction. So you've got to control that in order to control who reproduces and how your religion grows.
So why do they have them cover themselves like that then?
Because they want to create the illusion that they're in danger if they don't. And they want to create that shame culture that it's the Madonna horror thing.
They're not creating anything.
Joe.
Yes, they are.
They're the same reason that they won't let them go to school.
Yeah.
But that's something. That's another. Yeah. That's a layer on a layer on a layer.
Right, but the whole idea that if a woman isn't covered up or being, quote, modest, then she's at risk for being raped is complete crap, because rape has nothing to do with sex. It's about power and control. That's why
I don't agree with that.
No, that is exactly what rape is about.
That's it.
It is about power and control. What you're thinking of instinctually is lust. Lust is an instinct.
But
so
hang
rape
on,
has no lust?
It doesn't not in the same sense. It's
rape
not
does not rely on lust.
Because if rape was about sexuality and lust, then why would 20-something guys rape 80-year-old women? And that happens quite frequently.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Wait.
Because a senior citizen is easy to control. That's why they get targeted.
What's the motive for that act?
Control. To domination. Power.
So but you're excluding the sexual part.
You don't need that sexual part.
The sexual part is only the vehicle to
if you don't address the problem as objectively as possible, we're not going to find a solution for it.
But I am. Let's not objective about it. Yeah,
There's nothing sexual in rape.
No, not in the same sense.
Yeah,
the sex is only the means to the end.
The sex is the medium used to control the person.
Yes, and it's the easiest and most accessible way for these people to exert control over the target, because a physical violation is usually one of the most severe things that can happen to a person that doesn't lead to death or being maimed, right? But so if they want to exert control over someone and feel that sense of power and not necessarily kill somebody, but sometimes it does lead to that. But sex is the easiest and most accessible vehicle to that. You don't necessarily need a weapon. You don't need anything except your own body. Right?
And because of the way the religion is set up, the woman has been indoctrinated to believe that if it happens to her,
it's her fault.
And in many cultures, when it happens or if it happens, it's her fault.
Yes.
That way, the man doesn't take the blame. Once again, it builds on a level. Like you said, Joe, you actually hit it right on the head when you said it's layers on layers on layers. That is
Yes.
another layer of control. Like,
yeah,
like
but
no
if you don't address the
another
source
layer
of
of
it all, then
But-
the rest of the layers you're
sex
looking at.
is not the source. Sex is, again, it's only the means to the end.
That's ridiculous.
No,
No,
it's the
It's the
weapon.
single greatest way to humiliate a person and establish
the weapon.
dominance.
Absolutely, it's what. Look at in the wild when
There
animals
are
want to
thousands
show.
of ways to humiliate somebody.
But this is
Yeah,
the
if you look
easiest and the most universal one.
If you look in male American prisons, what's the easiest way? The easiest way to exert dominance? Either A, kick the crap out of the biggest, baddest motherfucker you can find, or
That's
B,
something
rape
else.
his
That's
ass and make him your
another-
bitch.
Oh boy.
And it's not about getting sex. It's not about the violence. It's about the control. It's
Like, I'm not trying to deny that sex has anything to do with it, but I'm saying it's the weapon, it's the vehicle, but it's not the motivator, it's not the goal.
There's
rape's not an instinct.
everything we do has a motive behind it.
Yes.
Like even scratching our nose has a motive
Yes.
behind it, okay?
Yes,
All
absolutely.
right, and there's something that starts people down that road.
Yes, absolutely, and it's not sex. And it's not lust.
That's ridiculous.
It's not, and I've studied this. It's absolutely not lust or sex.
Mm.
Again, it's the vehicle, it's the weapon, but it is not the goal.
I was going to
Or
say,
the-
the
or the
best way to get an
motivator.
answer to that is ask a rapist.
Hmm.
See an interview with somebody who's been convicted of serial rape.
I've
ask
watched them.
Was it about getting your rocks off, or was it something else? Why did you do it? And sometimes they will explain why they did it. Now, I'm not going to speak to it because I typically don't watch shows like that. But I know there are shows. So I know that there are shows out there,
Mhm.
and that would be the challenge. Find one, watch it, and get an answer straight, quite literally, from the horse's mouth.
And like I say, to me, one of the biggest indicators is the people who rape others who are not generally considered to be sexually attractive. And the biggest one of those are senior citizens, and they are targeted quite regularly. And that's because they are an easy target and easier to control, because control is the goal.
I can speak to that one, unfortunately.
Okay, just to bring this back, all I was trying to make, the point I was trying to make is that as humans we're born with a toolbox, okay? And once we enter into society, we begin to learn from it and all that. We're not going to use all the tools in the toolbox. We learn which ones we should use, which ones we should leave. And that's it. That's the only point I was trying to make.
Okay.
That sounds like one of the sales pitches I use for a training course that I take.
Sounds like a
Here's no
marketing to sell Cutco cutlery.
No, quite literally. Quite literally. I say,
Backing up what Deborah said, we have no shortage of 82-year-old women who are raped in their homes at night when they've done nothing.
Yeah.
And you can't tell me that some dude is just wanting to screw an 82-year-old woman because he's horny.
He's hot for grandma's grandma.
Well, you know what they
Right.
say, like in Ice Age, the wrinklier the prune, the sweeter the fruit.
No.
The other guy on the boat cringed too when the cartoon character made that comment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
There's a mental image for you guys out there. And ladies.
I am going to shave your beard, Tech, one whisker at a time.
I dare you to try. You don't even know where I live.
Pliers.
Pliers.
Tweezers.
So bringing it back around, let's kind of unpack a piece about all this, and not what we've just been talking about. Why do we have the positions that we've had at this point? This is kind of going to be one of those meta kind of moments, and unfortunately so. Trippin, I did see your question over here. I just don't know where to fit that in at the moment. I'm not ignoring you. Just want you to know that I did see it. Just not quite sure. I have been lucky enough that I grew up in the suburbs of New York, on Long Island, out where, if you were lucky enough to have enough money, you got yourself a house out there, an hour outside of Brooklyn, or Little Italy, as the case may be at that particular time. I got lucky. I rolled I rolled natural 20 as far as that's concerned, sort of. I got damned lucky on that angle. I didn't have to worry about people coming after me. I didn't have to worry about being... All right, I got a little bit bullied, but then again, I also finally gave back, but it's another story for later. I think a good portion of us have been fortunate in that angle also, that we have not had to deal with... How do I best put this? We have not had to deal with the strife that a lot of other people have. And again, I'm kind of trying to parse this around the problems that we've been having that have been showing up with the police, which was really where we were supposed to be going. So to that angle, what is it about how we've grown up, where we grew up, when we've grown up, where we've been fortunate enough that we don't have real animosity towards anybody for the most part. I know individually we've all got a couple of quirks to us, and I'm not going to single anyone out because I know who has made reference to it because our own chat. So I'm only going to say as much as basically shell game. Somebody doesn't want to bring it out, they don't have to. Somebody does want to, they can. That's as far as that goes because I don't want anybody to be left the way it is. Joe, you grew up originally Chicagoland. Chicago at this point is not the nicest of places. Where you grew up, when you grew up, was it anywhere near what it is now? I'm assuming not.
Well, I only... The last time I was in Chicago was, 2 years ago. It was only for a weekend, so it's not like I saw a whole lot of the area. But from what I've seen on such as news, what little I have seen, I don't watch news much. Yeah, I mean, there was the typical small time crime that you would expect in places like that you see in the movies that involve New York and Chicago. That element there that it was pickpockets, stuff like that. Violent crime, I would say, yeah, it's gotten it. I wouldn't say it's gotten a lot worse, but it's definitely noticeable.
And Dalan, Heretic Woman, I don't know which one of you want to take it. I mean, Canada is very noticeably not anywhere close to as violent as what we got, unless, of course, somebody's knocked over a Molson delivery truck or something.
It's funny you say that. There was actually just a shooting here this weekend, or this past week. They do say it was targeted, though, so it's not like a random act of violence.
Yeah.
Like, where I grew up in a small town, and not too far away from it was a native reservation. So any kind of prejudice or whatever that I had based on growing up was actually more towards natives than it was toward anything else. And even to this day, like Joseph said, when you first see that person, the mind automatically assumes what that person's going to be like. And when I went out to college, that was, I guess, my real first exposure to, a multicultural world. So I came into it with really no expectations whatsoever from, the typical races you see today. Like I did not have the preconceived notion that, all blacks are gangstas. or
Yeah.
that all Sikhs were crazy knife-wielding psychos, or that anybody from the Middle East was going to try to blow themselves up yelling Allah snack bar at me. I never, no, like, no, it was part of what I used to say, when we did the bios,
Mhm.
it was always have an open mind, and I've tried to do that the best I could. Where I live now, there is a lot of Middle Eastern culture. I mean, my landlord is of an ethnic descent. I think he's actually from there. Most of my neighbors are non-white, and I really don't care. But as far as like the really violent crime and stuff that you would see in some of the big cities in the States, usually if there's something big that happens around here, it's usually targeted or it's gang related. There's not a lot of the whole random,
Yeah.
guy wigs out with a machine gun in a mall. Typically not.
I would say that's the same for Toronto as well. We do get shootings there, not terribly often. They do happen, and those are almost always gang related. A lot of murders that you see in Toronto in the area are very targeted, specific, like domestic disputes of that nature. Yeah, it's you never see like Dalan said, some guy decides to go batshit and shoot up a store or something like that. You just don't see that.
But imagine if you're growing up with the television. The television is always preaching at us, be afraid, be
I
afraid
did.
of this.
Well,
I
actually,
grew up
but-
with that.
no, but Heretic Woman,
Yeah.
If you're
you and I, sorry, Joseph, but
Mm.
you and I and Shujin and I think Brigid to some extent, we're a generation removed. Like, we actually did go outside when we were kids.
Yes.
Our social networking, like, okay, my social networking was outside baseball and football every other night. It was bike riding. It was rock climbing.
Yeah, I never did that.
Well, okay, for me, rock climbing.
Outside.
Look. For
I'm
me,
almost,
rock climbing
I'm almost
was
40.
yeah. For me, rock climbing was going out in my backyard. I mean, I lived on the shield.
Right.
I lived on the side of
No.
a mountain.
Yeah, but swimming, fishing, boating, summertime activities were not us glued to a computer or glued to the TV all the time. If I ended up watching too much TV, my parents would kick me the hell out of the house.
See, mine were different. The television was my babysitter. So it was go watch something and don't bother us. So no, I seriously grew up in front of the television.
Okay.
And so you see, for me, it was different in that I got Saturday morning cartoons, but I had to go outside and play. I couldn't play any of the Nintendo unless it was raining outside. And TV time was, there's a movie on, the family's going to sit down and watch it together.
Yeah,
But
no.
dinner would never happen in front of TV. Dinner always happened at the table.
What I wanted to say is that, if you grow up with this kind of environment, you have the television telling you all this stuff, and your community and your immediate surroundings, like empirical surroundings, there are no people of race or anything. It's like it's something quote unquote different, or they're a minority or whatever. Then you can't really counter the television's message or test the television's message.
You are.
It's going to stay in your head until you have empirical experience.
But I'm telling you,
wait a second. If you grew up in a community with like an interracial community, you're going to have direct empirical experience with these people, and you're going to have less of a tendency to be racist.
What I'm going to tell you is that's exactly how I grew up. There was one black kid, and he was an adopted child of a white family. There was one Japanese kid who was there for 1 year, and they left. And that was it. Like, I had no interaction with anything but white people.
Me too.
And my television was the babe. Like, even my parents put me in front of the TV. I was like, watch this in State of Our Hair. My grandma put me in front. Like, I was watching stuff on television that no kid. Like, I remember watching when Reagan got shot, and I was like parked in front of the television. Nobody paid attention. Like I was, watching poor Brady, bleeding all over the sidewalk, and nobody bothered to say, hey, maybe the 8-year-old shouldn't be watching that. Nope, nobody cared. I was sitting there watching all of that stuff, right?
I grew up in the same environment. That's why I could have this reaction I was talking about in Paris. Because it was my real first experience. But
I don't know why that's a negative thing, though. Like, I still don't get why that's inherently negative. Because
reacting off of assumptions.
Yeah.
But okay, but
actually
let's
taking your assumptions and molding your behavior on them. A lot of people don't. A lot of people do, though.
I might think
especially when it comes to voting.
But I don't. I might have a reaction, but I don't ever act on it, and that's just how I've always been. Even though, from what we were saying, my upbringing would sort of suggest that I should be otherwise, but I'm not.
I'm focusing on the reaction.
Right, and I don't usually have a reaction. In fact, I remember as a teenager when I started to learn about racism and how Aboriginals and Black people and other groups were treated poorly, it upset me to the point that if and when I ever did encounter someone who was different, I would make damn sure my reaction was a positive one, no matter what my thought process was. Like, I was very conscious of that.
The irony of this whole is that when I was growing up, I didn't know I was 1/4 Native American until I was 18.
Right.
And I grew up actually having this reaction to that Dalan was talking about to Native American people. So,
which I can understand, because that's the one area that I think Canada does have a bit of a racism problem is towards Aboriginal people, and we don't treat them very well.
And this is going back to my emotional training thing, because I was trained emotionally to be racist towards Native American people and
towards yourself, basically.
Exactly. So I had to retrain myself. It's
right.
You can train any emotion.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's the reaction, like the spark, the thing that your eyes, the thing that your brain processes the moment your eyes set on somebody. Acknowledging that you're going to have that reaction, that's one thing. But then training, like Joseph said, training what the response. So that, yes, you have the reaction, but you condition yourself that, okay, it's a reaction, move on. Like, don't...
I neglected to say that it requires critical thought training.
Well,
Okay.
Yeah.
Because critical thought overrides emotional reactions. So if you live by imitation alone, you're going to have a much less control over your
like I said,
that's
reaction. Basically what I did. Like I said, if I encountered, like when I went to university, if I encountered someone of a different ethnic background, like I said, I made damn sure that my outward reaction, if there was one, was positive. Like, I would make a point to smile at them, or some kind of positive. Or if I was anywhere around them, I might say hello, or, if they were in line with me or something, I might say, oh, please after me. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I would go out of my way to make sure that I had a positive reaction to them, because I felt
that's strange, no?
I just
why
would
you have that? Why would you have to do that?
Because when I learned about racism and how people who are different were treated so badly, I felt bad about it, and I wanted to do the opposite.
I think it's
with time, you won't have that reaction anymore. You just talk with somebody like they're just like anybody.
Well, I do. Like,
It takes empirical training.
Like for instance, right now, like I do
And
not like
critical thought.
Islam. I cannot stand Islam. And the idea of women wearing even a hijab bothers me. But I understand that those women are themselves not to blame for that. So when I come across, like, there's a lot of Muslim women in this area. So almost every time I go to the store, I end up with a woman in a hijab at the cash. And so I make damn sure that I am extra pleasant, because I don't want my prejudice towards her religion to, like, she doesn't deserve to have a shitty day because I don't like her religion, you know what I mean? So I try to make sure that, I'll make sure I smile, that I'm pleasant, that I don't make it known that I think her religion's bullshit.
All right, so we do have something that Trip and Fool, and yes, I did see all three of them, by the way. And I'm going to see about getting Brigid in a couple of moments. She had to step away, but Tripping Fool had gone ahead and put this to us. Acceptance and tolerance has been lost. Through history, it seems that acceptance and tolerance of others goes in cycles. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Younger generations get tired of elders whining and complaining from not accepting and tolerating others. I'm going to agree with that because, admittedly, okay, the running joke is I'm 39 years old. I'm not. I'm 47 years old currently, working on 39. The cyclic nature...
46 last show.
It's a long story.
Just don't ask Joseph. Your head will thank you. Trust me on this one.
Okay, 2 words. Jack Benny. Look it up later.
There you go.
Later. Anyway, the cyclic nature of stuff, even in the 47, all right, let's call it 45 years that I've been conscious enough to be able to see it, that happens. Culturally, that happens in roughly 20-year cycles. Roughly. Now, I can point this out as showing that certain songs styles come and go, that certain movie genres come and go. And
I'm imagining bird flight patterns.
That's not quite where I'm going, but okay. But how we interact with each other societally, how we deal with each other, does also have its cyclic nature. Usually, the aggregate moves towards better as an aggregate. Unfortunately, there are times where it goes backwards, but just like with everything else, eventually the pendulum has to come back to center and then back the other way. And
It has to do with memory.
Yes. Yes, it does, but maybe not necessarily in the way that we might think of it. See, the piece about this that really gets for me is that it's science. Science as a methodology says document everything, and then keep reading what you wrote down and keep learning from it and keep changing how you do things. Like I said, as an aggregate, societally, we keep getting better because we do keep learning, we do keep remembering, we do keep retraining ourselves. For myself,
do people think using the scientific method?
Yes, they do. How many times have you stuck a knife into a light socket?
No, that's empirical.
No. Go with it. How many times?
I stuck a penny in a light socket.
Okay. Well, you're just a weird one.
So people, they test all assumptions?
I shot myself in the head.
Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Gage.
With a pellet gun. No,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
4 years old with a pellet gun.
Wow.
So, do we try everything? Culturally, societally, yes, we do. Not every individual tries out everything. Some people have to because there's no choice. And I'm going to pull a really, really, really awful example. And I want your direct... I've got the camera on you, Joseph, because I want your direct your direct reaction to this. How many people jumping out of World Trade Centers 1 and 2 do you think were hoping beyond hope that they would be able to land in such a fashion that they would be able to survive?
There's a lot of things going on in my head there. Like, first off, how would anybody have... They can have that hope, and they're operating on hope alone, and then when they see others doing it, they would think they have more chances because that is a form of confirmation.
They have hope, and that's it. They know full well it's a hopeless endeavor, but yet they will still do it.
But I don't see your point.
The point is, even though they didn't sign up for that moment, they became part of the scientific endeavor. Whether they wanted to or not, they tried. They didn't have a choice. They didn't have too much of a choice. It was either die for sure inside that building or take the wildest stab in the dark of 1 in a quadrillion chance of surviving a fall.
Yeah, and also having no other option.
Exactly. Now, whether you like it or not, you're part of the scientific endeavor at that point. We know full well that the better chance is you ain't gonna survive from that. But yet they had to try on that hope beyond. Now, does that mean that it's a good thing? It was the only possibility that they had left. Try.
Or it could be a less painful death.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Burning by fire is one of the most horrific ways that you can die.
That's what I was thinking. It would be more of a, okay, this will be faster.
And less painful.
But the point is, societally, culturally, we do keep getting better over time because we do learn how things have gone poorly. We do know that it doesn't matter how much melanin you've got, you're human, that you've got the same feelings as everybody else. So stop being a dick. Yeah, that's yeah, Wheaton's rule kind of goes back to the, I don't know, turn of humanity.
Don't be a dick. Yeah.
And
I don't see many. I see there's an improvement through our technology being made, our relative comfort, but and from a behavioral point of view, I still see things going in cycles. Like when we're talking about, when I was talking about memory, this generation has no memory, no empirical experience with someone the likes of Hitler. Sorry to go Godwin on this, but
No,
so, but
you have a point. You have a point.
This look at what's happening with Trump. This is exactly how it happened, and we're going cyclical again. And it's been like it's normally the cycle is well, usually every 2 generations or something like that, and we're almost on the 2-generation point between here and the Second World War.
Yeah.
Because not only like our parents may have empirical experience with this kind of thing, and they can provide the proper warnings and all that, but when it's just grandma, it's just grandma's stories, and we haven't been witness directly to the societal phenomenon, which is groupthink. You know, it's hard to react against it.
And then
As
again,
I am, it's grandma's stories.
Yeah.
yeah, Brigid,
for me, it was mom and dad's stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm 1 generation removed.
Well, I mean, my mom was born in '49, so
Yeah.
you know this was before her time.
Yeah. No, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, Brigid, let me keep with you for just a couple of moments more though. You are arguably on the older side for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So you had been talking about the possibility of maybe going and doing teaching at some point, probably in the near future, and that's the reason why I'm going with this, because you've got that possibility to you, and I would assume that from what you've gone through, you've also had the opportunity of doing some teaching, some training, some talking with interns young nurses and doctors, young researchers coming up through the ranks who have to shadow you, find out how things work, what works, what doesn't, and arguably teaching up to you what some of the newest stuff is. There has to be that. I'm probably not going to use the right term, repartee, in order for the exchange of ideas to go back and forth, to teach back and forth, up and down that scale. Mm-hmm. Is that something that does actually happen, or am I just misinterpreting how I've seen my experience dealing with the medical community?
There usually is. The problem that I have is I've been out of it for so long that a lot of the newer technologies I'm not familiar with. And, so the younger people are teaching me, which I think is kind of cool. But there has to be some sort of rapport, for ideas to get across. So, I mean, of course, if you don't have communication going back and forth, the teacher is not going to be a very effective instructor, and the student is not going to learn. And there's also not going to be good feedback for the teacher to figure out how to better reach students.
Yeah, the reason why I'm going down that angle is that I do think that the teaching up and down is something that does happen, but over the last, let's call it 40 years. Mm-hmm. Even though it's been 60, Jesus. It's 100 years since World War I. It's over 100 years.
Yeah, 1914.
The point being is that, Joey, how did you describe World War I originally? I mean, we've talked about this before. How did you describe World War I?
The last war that had any sense of chivalry, that still followed the old, what we call the old rules.
But you basically referred to it as a bar fight.
Well, yeah. It pretty much started with we know Franz Ferdinand got shot by Serbian proto-nationalists, and Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia. Well, then Germany declared on Serbia. Well, Russia was allied with them, so they warned them, hey, we'll get in on this. And it just domino affected like that because of the League of Nations and all the treaties that were set up.
Now, I do think that culturally there was still a learning from that moment. Let me bring it forward a little bit further, because you do know on this one. World War II, Germany basically steamrolled all over everybody else. They didn't say, let's you and me take over. Let's us take over.
Well,
basically.
Before Operation Barbarossa, there was the treaty between Germany and Russia.
Yeah, but Russia wasn't really rolling into anybody else. It was just more a don't hit me, I won't hit you, right?
Actually, they were attacking Finland and Poland.
Yeah, but nobody really cares about Finland anyway. Too cold up in there.
They beat the Russians.
Well, it's because they had the cliffs of insanity on their side.
No, they had Simo Haye on their side.
And didn't they also have German help?
Well, they also had General Winter.
Mm.
That's right, Russia. General Winter, he knows no sides.
Works on both angles.
Wasn't there also limited use of NBCs, or was that just World War I?
That was just World War I.
Okay.
Okay, and for those of us that don't know what that is, Bridge.
Nuclear biological,
yeah.
i.e. mustard gas.
Yeah.
And it's not surprising that there wasn't use of them, because let's face it, Hitler had he was a corporal in World War I. He saw the horrors of what mustard gas did. And no matter, and monster that he was, I'm not arguing he wasn't, he at least was human enough to recognize that, probably shouldn't do that.
And collectively, even in warfare, we've collectively, societally said, that's a bad. We can't do that. We won't do that. Mm-hmm. However, unfortunately, in the news this past week, it would appear that in Syria, there's the possibility of a chlorine gas attack on a populace, which the UN has basically said, if that's the case, that's a war crime.
Yeah.
Now, do we learn? Yes. Do we use the scientific method? Yes. We may not necessarily think of it in those terms, but we've seen what bad happens. So I think that there's a very good case to be made that, yeah, we learn through the scientific method whether we like it or not over time.
I wouldn't confuse empirical experience with the scientific method, though.
Well,
I mean, it's part of it.
Well, they do something, they see the results. That's empirical evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. They take it, they document it, and they decide whether or not to continue with it or how to change it.
Yeah, so the scientific method would be basing on the documentation from the original empirical evidence versus actually experiencing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it was interesting what Brigid said about teaching and experience. I go back to when I was in school, one of my lit classes, we were doing one of our subjects was a book that had to do with some Nazi defectors. And I say Nazi because they were former German army in World War II, and they were trying to get away from all of it. And so one of the things that came up was we all had to write essays about World War II, you know, whatever subject it was. And my teacher remembered about my parents and said, hey, I've got a special assignment for you. I want you to interview your parents because they were in the thick of it. Like my oldest brother, he's over 60 years old. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. So my father was involved in the war. My mother was there during the Nazi occupation of Norway. So I had access to a pretty interesting perspective. And again, I'm one generation removed from that war. And I think there's something to be said that people of later generations now cannot relate to, like, yeah, everything I've got, you know, is anecdotal based on what my parents said. Mm-hmm. But that's still enough for me to have enough of an understanding that, you know, that stuff was bad. Hitler was an evil guy. He did a lot of bad things, although he didn't use mustard gas, apparently. But I think a lot of that also comes up with a lot of the things you're seeing today. I'm going to kick myself for saying this later, but the whole professional victim trend that's going on these days, where you've got people half our collective age here talking about things that, you know, we dealt with, or that society dealt with back in the 60s and 70s. Having absolutely no idea what being a real victim is like.
I tend to regard with suspicion that kind of...
But one thing that's also interesting, though, is the millennial generation that you have.
Yeah.
That have grown up, you know, not knowing anything other than 911 and what's happened since.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, how many of us spent at least 10 years of our lives before the internet?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
You know, 20 years, even that. I think I was...
1993.
I mean, if you don't count the bulletin board system.
That was one of the world's first webmasters.
Yeah, but,
So-
but even that, like even myself, I didn't even start looking at that till like at Bulletin Board like '92, just because I wasn't part of that culture, if you will.
Yeah.
But no, I remember when the internet was still more or less a mail service system where I used to get emails, and I thought that was really cool. I remember seeing a first-generation web browser and trying to figure out, well, what is the significance of this?
Follow hyperlinks.
Well, yeah, and I mean,
Blue on a
like,
white background, and that was
well,
it.
and now it was like, okay, great, I've got this 14.4 modem. Yes, I started there. Well, actually, no, I started with a 2400, but that's another story.
Wow.
2600 pound.
Yeah, but now you can open up this thing called a browser and see pictures and tie up even more of your phone time because you're too busy downloading these damn pictures. Like,
Oh.
high-speed internet did not exist.
No.
back
I
then.
remember when the memory I had wasn't even sufficient to load the whole picture.
Oh, those days, or what was it?
Yeah.
10 minutes for a 1 megabyte badly compressed JPEG file of some
Yes.
swimsuit model.
That makes porn really
Yes.
frustrating.
Yes, yes.
Believe
it
me,
does.
Joseph, back then it did.
I've been there, yes.
Yeah,
Well, if you
right.
timed it right, just as the picture fully rendered. Never mind.
So,
Not that I did that.
Usenet and interrelay chat, great.
Yeah,
I loved
Yeah.
IRC. I loved it.
but I mean, but you're right. Now we have a generation that's always known the internet. That a computer is not a computer unless it's online.
Yeah.
There are kids, not even 10 years old, who have cell phones that make mine look like a frickin' rotary thing, and I'm rocking a pretty good device.
Mhm.
And they lose their internet connection. They lose
And their
it.
life is over. Yeah,
Yeah.
their life is over. Just, what am I going to do? I
Yeah.
have no internet.
Yeah, there you go, Shujin. Yeah, right there. For those of you listening in the year 3525,
I have one of those.
Shujin is holding up a phone.
Old school telephone rotary
Yeah.
dial.
But that was the one that you put on the coffee table. The one you hung on the wall was,
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
vertical thing.
If
Like
I
a giant
could,
banana.
if I could borrow a line from Lewis Black, it's the kind of phone that if you saw a Pullman coming at you, you could throw it at it and kill it.
No.
Yep.
See, you didn't throw it. It had that wonderful finger grip area there. So what you did is you held onto it and you'd go whack, and then you do it again because every time you'd hit, the damn phone bell would go clang,
Oh,
clang,
yeah.
clang.
Uh,
And
Yeah,
Suji,
one
I'm
thing
talking
that
about
kids-
using the bass.
Tech, I'm just saying.
The saddest
Not that I've ever
Paradise.
hit somebody with that phone.
If you're close enough to a Puma that you're going to use that phone for a bludgeon, I'm sorry, you're dead.
Yeah.
I would call that handle
no,
leverage
because
for
it's
the throw.
just like the original Xbox controller. If you get them on the first hit, there's enough mess there to put them down for good.
Yeah, but slamming down a cell phone on somebody to hang up on them just doesn't do it. It's not the
Especially
same.
when it's
That's-
an Apple phone,
No.
the screen goes.
Because there was that essence ring because you've hit it so hard, you've jingled the ringer,
Yeah.
and it.
So
Here, you
do
get
it.
it?
Do
Get
it.
it?
Do it. Do it.
Get it?
Do it.
Here we go. We're about to have
Here
a
we
live
go.
demonstration, ladies and gentlemen.
Here come the
Do it.
memories.
I'm going to make
Here
sure I
goes.
close the door. Now, by the way, the bottom side of this does say that it was manufactured 1978. Yep.
Nice.
Wow.
This is all hardwired. This doesn't have any of the.
Do the handset thing. Do the hit.
Let's see here.
The little push
Yeah.
buttons like the Princess phone had.
Oh yes.
7, 1, 6, 5. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. 8, 6, 7. You know what? Doesn't really much matter. It goes like this.
Yes.
And there goes my childhood.
Memories.
Can
not
I
told you
get
moment
you
for the
to-
night.
Now, see, Susan, you need to make like a professional recording of that, and just have it so that it's made on a tape recorder. And every time somebody pisses you off, just play it and then hit the hang up button. Or make an
Yes.
app that does that. Make an app, Angry Hang Up. sends that as an MP3 real loud through the system, then disconnects the call.
You know what?
1970s rage quit.
Posted. Yeah. There you go. The original rage quit right there.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, you know what?
Bouncing the Atari controllers off the floor.
Put that sound effect on Zedge, and you're good to go. I'd download that in a heartbeat.
I have no idea what that is.
Zedge is a utility for downloading ringtones.
Of course it is. Let me backtrack let me backtrack for a second on something, because there's something that's happening now that wasn't part of the schedule for us, but I've got Twitter open, so I'm seeing it. I think that, like I said, culturally, societally, like I said, the aggregate is to better and better. And one of the ways that I can talk about that one very quickly and say, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Tweet came out 2 minutes ago from SpaceX. First stage landing confirmed on the drone ship. Second stage and JC-SAT-16 continuing to orbit. Falcon 9 first stage landed on the drone ship. Of course, I still love you. Yes, that's the name of their drone ship. Let me paint a small picture. An automated rocket came down, reversed course, drove itself back, landed on a barge, computer controlled, out in the middle of the water with nobody else to it. As an aggregate, that's pretty badass. You consider that 50 years ago, we were looking at the moon was going to be our next big thing, and okay, yeah, that fell apart. But we've got private companies that can do this shit. Now, yes, by and large, this doesn't go ahead and change how we are to each other. But then again, we didn't know what electricity, Mr. Faraday, what is it good for? I don't know. I just found it. And now look at what we do with electricity. Thank you, Mr. Faraday. Was it doctor? You know, I don't think it really much matters. I don't think he's going to argue. But we keep getting better as time goes on. And that's, I think, one of the best parts about all of this. We didn't exactly go into the pieces I was hoping to, and of course, I'll see if we can reschedule with Ishmael to make this actually happen. But
what does Joseph have there? Sorry to cut in.
Joseph has an office phone ringer from I think it's from 1912.
I was gonna say that's got to be pushing 100.
Yeah.
It looks like a square head Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hook it up to my internet phone.
Yeah, it was the that's the angry love child between SpongeBob and Mickey Mouse.
Yes, yes.
I would highly advise you not to do that, Joseph, because I will call you at 2 o'clock in the morning just to wake you up and piss you off.
I'm thinking more if you've got the rest of that, like if you got the other pieces, I'd be giving Antiques Roadshow a call.
This was just something you'd put on the wall so that the phone was in the other room, but if you were in a big warehouse or an office or something like that, this thing would ring to let you know the phone was ringing, that you had to run to the phone.
Yeah, I'd recommend do not set up your Google Hangout alert to ring that thing, because the Tribble will annoy the living you-know-what out of you.
Yeah, my neighbors will.
Yeah, you just moved into that place. You don't want to get kicked out.
Yeah.
I think my neighbor is, his apartment's in some sort of time warp.
Something tells me that sucker goes off. This is as loud as you think it is. I think Brigid's going to hear it once it goes off.
I tried it once.
Oh, so that's what that was that woke me up. Thanks.
Yeah.
Use a new alarm clock.
We'll get you one so that you stay awake for the show. How's that? Welcome. So,
Get him to download that rage quit ring that we're going to put on Zedge for him.
That's
Yeah, that's awesome.
anyway. So, all right, we've had the opportunity of going ahead and decompressing a little bit, which is always good. Now comes the big question.
Recompression.
Just a little bit. One of the things that was said that I think we should probably finish out with is the, and I don't know where the delineation really is on this one, but, and I don't want to say millennials or Gen Y or any of that bullshit because it doesn't make any real sense to me. That there is no analog in the current day to what was seen by our parents and their parents. Now, I was born in '69, so I did not see the end of the civil rights thing. I saw through the early '70s that joking around about it was considered a way of trying to help diffuse. Diffuse. Wow, what the hell's happened to me?
Diffuse.
Yeah, that's what I'm supposed to. It's only Tang. It really is only Tang in here.
No, I think it is my influence on you.
It could be.
Or these Canucks.
That,
Hey,
go.
I resemble that remark.
Hey.
Take off.
Hey, poser.
I've actually been thinking about taking the dark amber syrup and trying that in my coffee.
You'll regret it. Trust me on this one.
I
Is that Tech pretending to sleep?
yes, it is.
Yes.
I was trying to diffuse the situation.
Appreciate that. Thanks so much. Anyway, but the point is, yeah, the current younger people, let's go with that as a collective, don't have nearly the same analog of what we've gone through, what we've seen, what we learned about. So, how do we impress the? You know what? There's no nice way of putting it. How do we impress on those that are ignorant of what has transpired the need, the absolute necessity of cleaning up what the hell is going on societally, especially considering the timbre that we've got right now with the American political scene right now. And I know. I don't want to get into that shithole again. I don't want to. We're not going to. But like we were saying before, right now it's one of the biggest pieces that's showing the most crap-filled underbelly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who wants to even bother taking.
For me, it's just a demonstration of a complete lack of rational thought.
Yeah,
How can this happen in
Yeah,
a
but how-
society where rational thought is the norm?
But how do we impress how important it is to get to that point?
And that's
don't
coming back
know.
to what we were saying earlier, that like impressing rationality on somebody who doesn't function by rationality, you can't do it. The argument has to be an emotional one.
And this is going to sound really, really ugly, but I'm going to just lay it out there. What we have now is a generation of snowflakes.
Yeah.
They get
Yep.
their fifis hurt too easily. They have very thin skin.
This is what
And they're all victims.
Shujin was talking about analog, and I can connect that to empirical experience.
Yeah.
And we can connect that back to empirical experience trains emotions. Okay, so here we have a generation of a new generation with a total lack of empirical experience with ideas, like just totally emotionally untrained. They're just not equipped to deal with the quote-unquote real world.
That's it. They're not equipped to deal with it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they don't take, because the internet, okay, we have access to like thousands of ideas and that we didn't have before, but if you don't go outside and test these ideas using the scientific method or whatever, empirical experience, then you won't be ready to deal with them.
Yeah.
Or if you don't interact with people in meat space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the brain needs empirical testing. Because it can have an idea, it'll retain that idea, but it won't validate it until it has empirical proof that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
No,
Going practically into neuroscience there, but I mean that's
You're right,
that's how
though.
humans work. I'm sorry.
You're
No,
right.
there's nothing to be sorry. All right, let's feed off this a second. There's nothing to be sorry about. That's how you're seeing it. Now, you could be right, you could be wrong, but if you're right, good. I want to have that. And more importantly, I want to
Test
have
it.
people be able to...
Don't just take my word for it.
Now you're starting to sound like reading Rainbow. I like that.
Well, just from my own experience, my daughter, we have not tried to raise her to be a snowflake. We've tried to get her to be on her own 2 feet, but she has learned from her education and school to be a precious snowflake, which is just, yeah. I mean, they teach it at school.
And
Yeah.
for me,
peace, yeah.
Yeah, for me with Tiny Trib, I have always taught her that she has her good pieces, and that's something to enjoy the hell out of. It's something to be proud for. But there's always going to be someone that's better at everything sooner or later. And
yeah.
there's nothing wrong with that. And the fact that you're not the best at everything, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not the president of a CEO making 6 figures that I know of.
Everyone's better at something than someone else.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's always something different. So
Yeah, it's the nature of the beast. It's the nature of humanity.
we have to get away from this one mold concept where there's one good way and one ideal.
Well,
It's
that's the
just
thing,
not-
Joseph. That's I'm probably going to stumble over this, but that is kind of a Marxist way of looking at things, where everyone is homogenous, everyone is equal, no one else is special, yada yada yada, and that seems to be a lot of what the whole snowflake thing is happening. Is that they try to shame down the brighter stars so that everyone else looks as good by comparison.
Mm-hmm. And everyone
it's
gets
a form of conformism,
going up.
Right.
and it's a dictate. It's actually a dictate.
But the people who are advocating that kind of society right now, they don't see the danger that comes from
No,
that.
because they're profiting from it.
Yeah, exactly. Tonight on Patreon is Evil.
Because I don't want to.
Let's
Patreon,
face it.
Patreon, no way. That's the opposite. Why did you say that?
Because, again, Shujin, hate to go off on a tangent here.
Nothing new.
I hate to Amtrak this. Sorry, Witchy. Where do I start with this? Look at, I'll say it, look at YouTube right now. Okay, if you looked at my YouTube feed and some of the things I look at, yes, I go after some guilty pleasures. I love watching some snowflakes get the verbal crap beat out of them by a more rational person. It's just fun.
Yeah.
But some people who started off in the atheist community, I hate to say this, they started off debunking apologists. Tropes v. tropes. The apologist, no, every single apologist that comes up, they say it differently, but they always end up saying the same damn thing. So a trained debunker, or anybody that's spent any time debunking arguments, will also have an ammo pack with all the same stuff. They have point counterpoint. It's always the same. So a lot of them now are like, okay, I've got this huge following. I've done my trope v trope. I've got a Patreon, but how can I get more Patreon? How can I get more patrons? Oh, I know. Let's see. So the sexy topic du jour is something else. So they shift their focus, and suddenly they get thousands more subscribers. More of them end up paying into it. And as long as they continue to perpetrate or proliferate that vein of controversy, as you said, they profit off of it.
I would call that corruption. Do you really think that Sam Harris operates on that?
I don't think so. No, Sam Harris is the exception to the rule. Sam Harris is definitely the exception to the rule. I'm talking about some other YouTubers.
But I love crowdsourcing. I mean, that is awesome. There's nothing more individualistic. I mean, the individual motivation to actually give money to something you think has value. That's awesome.
No, and I agree. I guess just, what I would perceive as something having value is a lot different from what some other people would perceive as
for everybody, it's different.
Yeah, like I'm a patron of two people. One does an awful lot of science stuff. He debunks a lot of scientific hype, a lot of like technological woo-woo, and I like watching that. I also like some of the experiments he does and he shows on YouTube. I think that's great. The other one is, well, he's a stand-up comic that does an awful lot of videos, and I have no problem throwing him a couple of bucks because I've bought a lot of his DVDs in the past.
I did not know that Dr. Conway had a Patreon. I'm impressed to hear that. That's good.
Not Dr. Conway, but someone who works with Dr. Conway. Let's just put it that way.
Oh,
that guy.
We have to discuss because I do not know who that is off the top of my head. After we can plug people afterwards.
Yeah, sure.
All right, we're getting pretty close to wrapping this up. There was a piece that you said that I want to use for part of my for my closing. You were talking about the individual snowflake. I want to use that because there's a piece that I want to work with that, which doesn't exactly work into. So yeah, we'll go ahead and finish off whatever pieces. So Joseph, go ahead and lead it off.
Yeah, about the snowflake mentality. I just want to try to make a sort of demonstration that that it's completely without critical or rational thought. Because I mean, if somebody insults you, to the rational-minded person, if somebody even gives you a direct insult, if you actually process what's being thrown at you, and if the person's right, then you're going to listen. But if they're wrong, like this requires testing, actually testing what they're saying. But if they're wrong, they're the asshole. And that should end there. There should be no offense taken. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I get it.
But to somebody who's like automatically offended at a few words, they're just reacting. They're not processing anything. And that, for me, that's kind of scary. Because these people like this, anybody who wants to impose a dictate, well, these type of people are just totally open to that happening.
Tech, I'm going to throw it over your way at this point. Where would you like to finish off?
Well, if this was a porno, no, just kidding. I'd like to finish off with some humor.
I've ever come across.
Huh?
Nothing.
I think what needs to happen is I think everybody needs to grow up. I think there needs to be some serious emotional and mental maturity that needs to occur. But I mean, our technology is expanding faster than our maturity.
Yes.
So when we isolate people, when we group them into groups and we trot on them and we oppress them or we kill them or whatever it be, and there's going to be blowback, and We saw this before. The only difference is now we have severely advanced ways of killing each other. And it's going to escalate. And escalate and escalate and escalate. I'm not saying it's going to turn into the next World War. You don't know what's going to trigger that, or if it's even going to happen. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that we can defuse the problems by stop trying to control people, grow up, take control of ourselves, help each other out when we see they need help, and stop trying to and stop indoctrinating people into systems of thought processes that are specifically designed to control other people, because that helps create the problem.
Tech just said what I was trying to say since the start.
Yeah.
Holy shit! I made a point.
No,
in less time it took Joseph to make one.
But
wow, that's never happened before.
We've been living under a dictate since, like 2,000 years. I mean, like since the beginning of.
There is a new movie coming out, and I really want to see it. The concept is that God does exist. He lives on the planet. He lives in a dingy little bungalow somewhere over in Europe.
That's a French movie. It's a Belgian movie. Yeah.
I really want to see that. I saw the previews for it. He's an angry little man living in a flat. His wife is kind of like, whoo.
And I love that actor.
We all know about the son. The son's not at home, but apparently he has a daughter, and the daughter's somewhat rebellious and gives everybody in the world knowledge of when they are going to die. And it changes the world, and you see this interesting change come over people. It's like, you know what? We may not be able to know exactly when we're all going to die, but we could definitely enact changes ourselves that would better humanity as a whole, just by breaking away from indoctrination.
Grow up. Learn how to survive on your own. Decide
well,
for
within
yourself
limits.
What's best for your survival and everyone else's.
Right. But there's
use your
multiple ways
own
to
develop your own value judgment system.
Gentlemen, we do need to kind of move. Plus, I had a joke I was going to be making about Krull, but now that we've gotten past that point, forget about it.
Yeah, the crows of
people.
welcome.
Joey,
You'll call them back. Don't do that.
You're looking very, very intimidated suddenly. I figured since I'm getting volunteers around the classroom, what perfect opportunity. Where do you want to close?
Well, given the range of topics we've tackled tonight,
Yeah, tell me about it.
I'm not entirely sure where to start. Tell you what, give me a minute.
Well, if this was a porno...
Again, not helping. Heretic Woman, I'll blow it your way.
Again, with the snowflake thing, yeah, you've got to understand that, number one, nobody has a right not to be offended, like, ever. And being offended isn't necessarily the end of the world. I get offended. I spent most of this evening being offended, just so people know. I lived. I didn't even, kick anybody or, throw anything at them. But,
are you referring to our chat that we had or some other event?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, because I brushed my teeth tonight, so my breath wouldn't offend anybody over chat.
Okay. Yeah, no. You're good. You're good.
My screen's not melting.
I spent before I got here, I was all afternoon either locked in a car for 3 hours with 3 religious people over 80, and the rest. Oh yeah, and then at a wedding full of religious people and all of that. So yeah, you can be offended, and it's not the end of the world. And this idea that everyone needs to bow to people's will and like that you have a right not to be offended, that everybody else has to conform to you, and that, you know, being offended is like the worst thing ever and everybody has to walk on eggshells to make sure that you're not offended. Like, no, like, stop it. You just put on your big person underwear and deal with the fact that you're going to get offended. You're going to hear and see things that you don't like, and other people are going to say and do things that you don't like, and you just have to suck it up and deal with it. And that's just the way it is.
You want my closing remarks? There you go.
Go ahead.
That's not going to help the people listening, though.
It would if you would let me read it. It's one of my favorite quotes.
Go for it.
And it's one that definitely applies to our time. It's now very common to hear people say, "I'm rather offended by that," as if that gives them certain rights. It's no more than a whine. It has no meaning. It has no purpose. It has no reason to be respected as a phrase. I'm offended by that. So fucking what? As paraphrased from Stephen Fry.
Who's very good at what he does.
Yes,
Indeed he is. Good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening, good evening.
Yeah.
Loved him on Top Gear. Brigid, where would you like to finish out?
Well, this is going to be different from what everyone else has been talking about. Since our guest did not show up, I want to say that I'm glad we did not try to speak as to what his experience would be like versus ours, since we have not been in his shoes, and you know, we are not angry black people, so we can't speak to the angry black experience. I'm glad we did not try to go there. Does that make sense?
I would regard with suspicion anybody who tries to.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
and you're right on the money. I would not want us to do that. That's, you know full well, I would not allow something like that to have happen simply because it would be, you know, one of my biggest pieces. It would be dishonest, and there's no way in hell I'm going to let that happen.
You know, but without being in someone else's shoes, there's no way that we could know. So to people who may be disappointed that we didn't cover this topic, you know, we really couldn't do justice to it without the person here. So
I'm glad we got what we did, though.
well, we
even
had
it-
great tangents. I loved it.
Yep. Dalan, what would you like to close out?
I don't know. I think Joseph and Tech really hit the nail on the head with it about people just having to grow up. My biggest fear, though, is the generation that's coming up doesn't or didn't have the base that we did. Like, we knew how to read, we knew how to write, we knew how to do basic math before we even looked at things like calculators, computers, the internet. For us, well, for you, Shujin, for myself, for Brigid, for anybody that's over that certain age, you know, where we were actually conscious and cognizant in 1993, for us, this is a tool. This is a means of recreation. This is not mother. This is not father. The internet to us is a resource. Granted, some of us use it for games. Some of us use it for shows like this. Some of us use it to stream movies. But for us, it is not the world. Sadly, the generations that are coming up, to them, this is mother. This is an unfiltered, unbiased, everything parental role model that has no emotion, does no training, that does not help to condition the younger generation as to what reality is going to be. There was a lot of one of the big pre-sup arguments, the whole brain in the jar thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what the next generations are becoming. Because if they're outside that jar, outside that bubble that is their home or the area around where their computer sits, once they're outside of that, they are on their own. And my biggest fear is that without having that base that we grew up with, which they have not been conditioned for, we're in for, well, I mean, they call it the regressive left for a reason. We're in for a regression socially. And I don't know, I watch it with a sense of detached, morbid fascination at the seemingly degradation of society. And I worry. You know, I don't worry, say, about TT very much, because I know I've met her, I know what kind of basis she has, and I know you're a good father, Shujin. You know, kudos to you. But I fear for the world that she's going to be thrown into as she gets older, because she's going to be that rational, level-headed mind in a world chock full of crazy. And I hope, my hope is that what I'm seeing out there is the minority. I hope I'm only seeing just a few loud voices against a tide of hopefully rationalism. I'm just not seeing a whole lot of evidence of it right now. I'm worried, that's all.
So the piece I'm going to end off with is, like I said, inspired partially by what Dalan had said earlier about the snowflakes. We've heard this term before, and everybody is their own special little piece out there, and everybody thinks that they are the most important piece. And they're, like I said earlier, with my little one, yeah, I've encouraged her to remember that the good parts are really good, and you should really enjoy that. But just because you're not the best doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. That level of individuality and conformity is, to me, a very important piece. In Japanese culture, conformity is, well, paramount. You don't stick out. You know, when you are in your late teens, early 20s, before you really settle down into becoming a salaryman or an office worker, and everybody is wearing the same dark pants, dark shoes, white shirt, whatever colored tie, white dark jacket matching, yeah, everybody is pretty much the same drone. And there's something to be said for that. Productivity in their culture does work. However, there are also people who end up literally falling over dead at their desk on a weekend because they just work themselves that long. So there's good and bad. What would be great to me would be meshing the two, getting the best of both, a hybrid of both pieces. Now, we're going to have that anytime soon? Probably not. But there are things to be said for those that do want to. What's the Tech? Remind me. What's the term for the people that go looking over the top of their cubicles because something happened? Was that cube gophering? Do you remember? No idea.
If he's,
I don't even know if you can hear me.
yeah.
Cube farm gophering. Sure. Yeah, I'll go with that. I don't even remember. Anyway, get the idea. Watch. What the hell was the
Farm.
cube farming?
Cube farm. Yeah.
Anyway, those people that can stick their head up, or maybe can't do it necessarily safely, but do take the risk anyway, whether culturally or whatever, they can learn. They can learn, they can be an example, they can teach, they can talk. It's kind of the same way that, you know, groups like ours get together, and humanist groups and freethinker groups and atheist groups, you know, you eventually learn from each other because you eventually gravitate toward each other, hopefully. But there's a piece that I want to pull out. because it was something that was really important for us over here and for my daughter. Part of this year, part of the summer, she went to something called the Summer Institute for Human Rights and Genocide Studies of Buffalo. That's a big mouthful, I know.
Mm-hmm.
The Summer Institute for Human Rights and Genocide Studies of Buffalo. Now, I've talked about this before. Her just this past year, social studies teacher, amazing teacher, heads this, and students from middle school up through college come in, they learn, they read, they help the community, and they teach and get taught. This teacher specifically found ways of, not just with this group, but with the middle school social studies course, was able to get people to come in to be interviewed by these students. The person who helped write the book, I Am Malala, they got to talk with her. Someone who actually survived the Holocaust, they got to meet directly. And even though the term is survived, as she learned, survive has a lot of degrees to it. Somebody that will continue to be, for however much longer he's got on this earth, will be affected by and continue to be. There are opportunities for people to learn, to find out. It's a matter of encouraging them. You need a good teacher. You need someone that people can gravitate to, people that can be trusted to explain it correctly, and damn it, if you don't know who that teacher is, you should be that teacher. Even if it's just for one person. I forgot who it was that said it. It might have been Socrates. You know, before he got into his drinking binge. That's a joke from a time travel movie. Kids should look that one up. There are no good students, only bad teachers. Sorry, no bad students, only bad teachers.
Party kid.
But if you've got a good teacher, it makes all the difference in the world. Be that teacher. Explain things. Make it relevant. Find a way. Because if you don't, well, there's only so many times you can stick a fork in a light socket. My wife got lucky when she was a year and a half old. She did it once. Fortunately, she never did it again. Can't imagine why. As always, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We hope that you've enjoyed our conversation and found something worthwhile in all of our perspectives. Especially Trippin' Fool, thank you for hanging out with us at least part of the night. I'm sorry I didn't use all of your questions. I wasn't sure how to, like I said before, work them through, but we have all read them, we have all seen, but thank you. Thank you for participating. As always, everybody, thank you for being on the show tonight. Joseph, thank you very kindly for your morning. I hope that you and Hugin and Mugen have a very great breakfast at this point.
I didn't get the reference, but thank you.
The crows?
Your crow friends.
What,
yeah.
Actually, what were the other two? Heckle and Jekyll. Isn't that?
Yes,
yeah.
Heckle
There you
and
go.
Jekyll.
Anyway, do we have anything that we need to be plugging for you at this point?
Never.
I'll take that.
No,
for what it is.
that's Nevermore.
No, wait. Are those crows or ravens? Because there is a difference.
True. But
Still a funny
there-
reference.
yeah.
Wait, are we doing government work? Because close enough matters at that point.
Yes,
Or
we're
playing
doing it.
horseshoes.
Yes.
And hand grenades, don't forget those.
Yes.
Accurate research with a 3% margin of error. Unrenowned Tech, thank you very much for your time this morning. You have a good... Shall we plug anything for you at this point, other than, of course, your Dio impersonations?
Oh, jeez. No, I have nothing that needs plugging right now. Thank you, folks.
Keep that in mind. Joey, considering the topic that we had on the show last night, I'm glad that he doesn't have anything to be plugging at this point. Thank you for your morning.
God.
And anything that we should be plugging for
Dr.
you?
Young.
No!
Dr. Young's ideal. Yeah, we're not going to go there.
No, we're not.
We'll talk about it later. Good night, folks.
How about plugging the pie hole?
Speaking
Were
of
you
which,
listening last night?
good. Where are you? Yes, good morning for you. And Brigid, you have stuff to be plugged, of course.
I will plug my blog. I'm sorry. Brigid Fitch 2112.wordpress.com.
You have no idea how much this plugging moment is really, really funny. We'll explain it. Promise. Heretic Woman.
Yes.
Yeah, you've got at least 2 plugs to be done at this point. I'm just going to milk this for everything I can.
Well, of course, I'm always on Beyond the Trailer Park, which is Monday nights at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, live on Spreaker and YouTube. Actually, don't have anything specific planned this week because I had a hell of a busy week, but you know, we're still going to be there and having fun and doing lots of cool stuff, so come check us out. We also have live chat now with a live Spreaker, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, and so I will be doing a little bit of voice work for Know the Truth. If anybody knows Pastor J and company, that's KONW. The TRUT with 4 must be 4 exclamation marks. Haven't put out anything with them yet, but I'm gonna start plugging the show anyway because it's fun and Pastor J is cool. Well, no, Pastor J is a dick, but Jason's cool.
Well, I'm glad he's decided to make a comeback.
Well, not on YouTube. This is a podcast. So he's got 9 episodes out, and it's also on Spreaker under Know the Truth, which is KONW, the TRUT. He's got 9 episodes out. It started out as Pastor Jay's take on having his own call-in radio show, which is called The Christian Experience, spelled CHIRST, something. It's screwed up, but The Christian Experience. Yeah. But anyway, check out Know the Truth and on Spreaker, and he's got some funny stuff up there, and weird, very weird.
I'll add that to the notes first. Thank you, and of course, Dalan, it's your time to shine, Snowflake.
Hey. Okay. If I stand up and show you just exactly how thick-skinned I am, you wouldn't be calling me that.
You sound offended.
Can't say it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna blog about it.
You're gonna
Well,
blog.
actually, that actually is what I was gonna plug. Is this?
You're gonna block him and have him like removed from Google Plus, right?
Hashtag blocked by Dalan. There you go.
Yeah.
Wait, are you going to go on Facebook and report him for offending you?
This week in Butthurt.
Yeah.
There we go. Joey, 2 points.
That's got to be the new YouTube show. Good evening and welcome to This Week in Butthurt. First, okay, I'm probably gonna get sued by another.
I will
YouTuber
invest
for
in that show. I don't have much, but I will offer up something for meager,
Well, somebody actually did used to do the, I think it was the weekly flag report or something like that. It's kind of the same thing. Or at least he was actually getting to the origins of some of the butthurt that was going on. But anyway.
Is some of the origin of the butthurt over excessive plugging, maybe?
It depends on the type of plugin that is used.
When you guys finally get the context of why this is so funny, you're gonna, well, you're probably gonna laugh even harder. But anyways,
I think it's called Bad Dragon. No, never mind.
no.
No.
You just wait, Tech. Anyways, yeah.
Dr. Who again?
Yeah, robotechtiger.tumblr.com. Yes, it's Tumblr, but I guarantee you there's no butthurt.
And of
Better
course,
with butthurt. Butthurt makes it better.
nope.
Suddenly, I can't believe it's not butthurt just popped into my head. You bastard!
Sorry.
You know, maybe we can.
Okay, and I'm not
I do
fixing
not
this
want to
in
live
post.
in my brain.
I'm thinking maybe we could convince Witchy to come back for a 10-minute segment and just do that one. This Week in Butthurt, that'd be just right up her alley, don't you think?
Yeah.
You know, yeah, I'd be all over that. I think that would be great.
I will pitch the idea over to her, because the worst that can happen is, oh God, I can't say it.
So,
The worst thing that could happen is Dalan could become an ostrich.
No, it could be worse. He could become a Pokemon. So, thank you
Ooh.
for being with us.
Wait.
Hey,
Wait,
Tech is
I have
the
an answer for
Snorlax
that.
in this group.
I've got a
Yeah,
crocheted
use that
Pokeball
on
here.
yourself, Snorlax.
Team Valor, bitches. Team Valor.
Yeah, I'm Team Dillygaff. Okay.
That's great. So he's now been muted. So thank you very much for being with us. If you would like to find out a little bit more about us, as well as check out the audio podcast, which of course Dalan has been very good about updating recently. So you get a slew of stuff all at once. You can check us over at holycrapthevlogcast.com. And if you've got emails that you want to send over, it's podcast@holycrapthevlogcast.com. Voice line, if you'd like to send us a voicemail message, is still active. 859-HCTV-554. Again, 859-4288-554. Yeah, I was thinking about it. No, I'm not going to do it this time. And, of course, all the social links are going to be over on the main website itself. I want to say a real quick thank you for those people that have been following me over on Facebook on the personal account. This past week would have and should have been my wife's 46th birthday. And all of you that chimed in when I posted about it on Facebook, thank you. I really, really do appreciate it. And as I understand it, The Princess Bride is available for streaming on Netflix currently. You should do it. Better yet, if you don't already have a copy of it, go to your local store and find it in the $5 bin and buy it. I will tell you the same thing that I tell a whole bunch of people every time I do my DJ sets. If you do not love this movie, I will buy it back from you, no questions asked. If you believed in capital L love just for 1 minute, you deserve to have this movie. So, with that in mind, of course, as always, thank you for being with us. I wish you the peace I no longer have. I wish you the strength that I've learned. I wish you well. To Sam Mulvey and company, if you've been following him, you know why. Our best hopes to you and your circles for peace. And of course, my lady. Matane Fujin. I love you and I miss you. Happy birthday. As always, until the next time we get together, everyone, good night.